Chris Webb. Thank you very much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you for having me on.
You are our first official external guest.
I've made it. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks for coming on, mate. Thank you. Right. You are a thriving coach within the estate agency world right now, and I'm loving seeing some of the stuff that you're doing online. I wanted to try and extract some value for the audience today and talk about some things that are super relevant to us and our customer base. And it's really around the advice that you would give to people starting out in the industry, starting out as a self-employed agent, because there are different skill sets that people need from going from one model to the next, and I'm sure you're coming across it all day. So I'd love to delve into a little bit of that with you. Could you tell me what are some of the biggest mistakes you've seen from people starting businesses right now?
I think there's one big, I don't want to say mistake is probably the wrong word. Underappreciation is probably the other side of it. I think that when people launch a estate agency business, they think they just need to be a good estate agent. So they think to themselves, as long as I'm great in the living room with Mr. and Mrs. Jones, and they think I'm the best agent for them and I can sell their property and get the offers to, etc., that'll be enough for me to have a great estate agency. And without bringing bad news here, it isn't. Unfortunately, it just isn't enough. People need to be aware that they have a sales and a marketing business. So if you come on board with it and you go, I'm great at sales, that's fantastic. That's only half of the coin. Mm-hmm. And especially when you first launch a business, you're heavily based around marketing. So I think it's an underestimation of how much work needs to be going into your business to actually get anyone to actually know who you are. Because I could be the most amazing footballer in the world, but if no one ever passes me the ball, who's going to know, who's going to care, sort of thing. So it's about looking at how you can get yourself in front of as many people possible with your business backing you up, so you can actually then show off how good you are at being an estate agent.
Perfect. And if we've got the sales, we've got the marketing element, what sort of balance are you seeing this with agents that are starting? How should they balance their time in order to build a successful business from the start?
So this will tether off over time. It depends where the business is up to. If you're brand new, you're basically marketing.
Yep.
If you're brand new on day one, if you haven't got either the sun on your face or the wind on your face or the rain in the face in the UK sort of thing, you're probably not doing the right stuff. You should primarily be out and about pretty much all day. You've got no stock to manage, no sales to agree, no vendors to keep happy. You're out and about trying to generate leads into your business. So really for the first, let's call it a couple of months or so, you're going to be out and about a lot. Even if you're an established business a year, 2 years down the line, I would still recommend having 90 minutes worth of lead generation time every day. Now that may not necessarily be direct, you going out leaflet dropping or you going out door knocking. It could be something more advanced than that. Things like sending out letters that are automated, for example, you're getting your social media sorted, etc. But if you keep that marketing going into your business consistently, you'll keep that consistent growth. The mistake that lots of agents make is that usually around instruction 5, 6, 7, they kind of think they've made it, in inverted commas. They take their foot off the gas on the marketing side of things. They're like, I don't need to do that marketing stuff anymore. I've got viewings to do. I've got valuations to do. I don't need to do that stuff anymore because it's more fun to do the estate agency stuff. And as if by magic, there's kind of the business starts to trail away quite quickly and they get kind of a, oh crap moment, I'll get that polite, where they go, oh my goodness, I actually need to start doing that marketing stuff and all the generation I did to get to that point initially. I need to pick that back up again. So one thing that many agents fall into is that trap of taking their foot off the gas too early, when really, probably for the first year, you need your foot welded to that floor trying to generate leads into your business.
Yeah. We talk about the estate agency roller coaster of, building that first 5 or 6, staying busy, and then all of a sudden you're dropping down when everything's sold and you're now looking for that next appointment. And actually constantly farming is so important to keep that consistency within your business. What are some of the things that people could do before taking the leap that would prepare them for these first months and first sort of 6 months in agency? Are there any things that people could start preparing in the background before making the step?
Yeah, so you need to understand, what the marketplace is like in your area. That's probably a big place to start off with. And that's going to be, looking at your competition, for example. What do they offer? What's good? What's bad? Are their socials good? What are their contracts like? You can do some mystery shopping because you're going to be coming up against these people day in, day out. So the more research you can do beforehand, before they actually are your competition, the better. The average estate agent in the UK competes against 12 other estate agents in their town. So you've got some competition there straight away. The general public can name about 3. So you've got a bit of a hard job there straight away. So the more you can know about what the opposition is doing is great. And the more you can understand about where you're going to focus your business. So it isn't a case of you wait for the starting gun to go and then you're like, okay, I better do my trainers up. It's a case of going, right, what's everything I can prepare in my business so when I do pull that trigger and let my business go, I've got social media for the first month, for example. I know my core area. I know my core demographic. I know what my competition is going to be. I know what my offering is. I know what my conversion should be. I know sort of thing. So that when you do launch the business, you kind of know what you're expecting going forward. Even having things like a business plan in place and a cash flow planning in place, you know what your outgoings are going to be. So if you get 2 months down the line, 3 months down the line, and you're on track with that, great. You can take a breath and go, great, I'm actually on track sort of thing. What we find generally is that people have an expectation before they launch, set that plan in place, and even if they do the same figures they're expecting to do, they panic slightly. Yeah. And they go, oh yeah, I said 3, but I kind of wanted 4 really. And it's like, no, but that's part of you're in the plan, you're in the part of the right process. So, it's definitely not a case of just turning up and it's going to work for you. The more work you can do beforehand, the better you're going to be actually when it comes to doing the estate agency.
You mentioned there that most agents go toe to toe with potentially 12 other agents in a normal sized town. How, if the consumer public can only recall 3, how important do you think brand is in this decision-making process?
I think it depends how you define brand. I think that, I don't like the expression personal brand, but for the sake of ease, I'll use the term personal brand. Personal brand, really important. Okay. People buy from people. So for example, I could go into a car garage and I could love BMWs, for example. But if the guy who's showing me the car is not very fantastic in the grand scheme of things, it's probably going to put a bad taste in my mouth, even though the car might be fantastic. So people understand people and people like people and people buy from people. So it almost doesn't matter so much the brand behind you, within reason, obviously, not as long as it's not completely terrible. It's really going to be the individual going forward. But that is a secondary issue to actually just being known in the first place. So if they do want to instruct an estate agent, they are going through a divorce or they're going through wanting to upsize, downsize, do they even think of yourself? And whether that's the brand, whether that's the individual, whatever it may be, that's your first problem. Only once they actually know who you are, then you've got the next issue of actually going, do they like me? Do we get on together? We like sort of agent for them, right sort of fit, fees, all this sort of stuff. So that's when that comes on. But the first issue you've got is actually, do they even know you exist? Because without that, you're stuffed, basically.
Yeah. Brilliant. So in starting afresh and launching the business, if somebody was coming at this from outside of industry, which so many more people are doing nowadays. I mean, if before an estate agent was an estate agent, they were outside of industry, right? So everybody's entering this industry at some point. What are some of the first learning steps you would recommend somebody take when they're just entering the business?
I think estate agency isn't a very complicated business on its surface. It's a bit like, I wouldn't say it's a bit like playing chess because that's probably a bit over the top, but it's certainly, it doesn't take you long to get the gist of what a property is all about. It's all about getting properties on the market for the right sort of price, presenting them correctly, linking up with buyers, agreeing offers, and getting them through to sell, exchange, and completion sort of thing. So that on its basis is kind of the overview of it. Actually, to master that obviously takes a very long time. So if you're new and you're coming into the industry, learning that to start off with is a really good place to start. And I would always kind of view it as a sort of a chapter approach. So for example, if someone came to me today and said, Chris, I want to be an estate agent, what do I need to do to launch my business? I wouldn't worry about talking about completions or exchange of contracts or solicitors or anything like that. It's like, right, well, chapter 1 and chapter 2 is let's get your business up and running. Let's get some leads into your business and kind of get you in front of some people. Then come to me with a problem. Then phone me up and like, oh God, Chris, I've got an instruction. Now you're like, brilliant, great, that's chapter number 3. Now we get that instruction online. Let's get it listed. I've now gone off and now great, let's get it sold sort of thing. Because if you go, here's an entire, portfolio of being an estate agent from start to finish, it's a lot to take on board. It's a lot of information. It's a lot to forget. And when you take someone on board and say, here's how you do sales progression, then 6 months later, they're like, oh, what did those guys say about sales progression? You haven't really got a clue. So it's about looking at kind of bite-sized chunks and working forward. And for anybody listening today thinking, I don't know the first thing about estate agency, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. I would also see that as you kind of being a blank canvas to the industry. You haven't got the bad habits to go with. I used to find with lots of the guys I historically worked with and work with now, some of the guys that charge the highest fees are the ones with no estate agency experience.
Exactly the same in our business.
I understand, because the ones that have been conditioned to be like, it's fee, they're like, oh, I charge 1% because I've always charged 1%. But then the people who come to the industry who haven't got that sort of chip on their shoulder basically go, yeah, I charge 1.5% because, I just thought I would charge 1.5% and that seems all right, and they get it. So do not see that as a disadvantage. It can be a massive advantage for you in your business.
Brilliant. Great advice as well. Like you say, breaking that down, and like you say, you can overwhelm people with information, and there is so much information out there. But yeah, taking the bit that is digestible and retainable is really important, and starting in the right place is key. So, I think that leads nicely into actually the role of coaching and mentoring. Certainly when you're changing into the industry or new into this type of industry and environment, being self-employed as opposed to having been employed. What do you feel the importance and role coaching and mentorship plays to somebody new into the industry?
So I think the expression is you never graduate from the University of Sales, and it's the same for a estate agency. You never know everything. So I was looking at the other day of the list of the books I've read this year so far. I'm knocking on about 20 so far, so I'm doing about 2 a month at the moment. And I consider myself pretty experienced in the grand scheme of things, you know, long track record of estate agency and written books and all that sort of stuff. So it's a case that you're never going to be the finished product. And I think anybody who thinks they're the finished product is deluded, and they're completely wrong in the nicest way of putting that. You can be really good, great, but I guarantee someone's going to come along at some point and eat your lunch for you, sort of thing. So it's about looking and going, right, that continued development, that continued learning. You know, I consider myself pretty good at my job. I still have a business coach. I have a business coach who I meet with once a week, and he points out things that I know the answer to, but I kind of slightly have my head in the sand to, because he is a step removed from the business, and he's like, obviously you need to be doing this, Chris. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like, I need to stop making excuses. I need to kind of just get on with it. So I think it's about having that accountability and wanting to grow. I think in the UK, we've got historically, quite a reluctance to coaching and development. People have kind of gone, well, what are you going to teach me? I've been an agent for the last 20 years or so. But even after the last couple of years or so, I feel that is softening. So even when I first started, I used to message people saying, you know, do you fancy some coaching, basically? And they would go, no, I don't need it. What are you going to teach me? Now they're like, actually, how's it work? And what's it look like? And what's the results look like? So I think it is a softening market on that side of things.
And framing, I think, as well. You know, like it's the way in which things are framed, I think, can appeal to different people at different times. I think one of the elements that you lent into there, which is so important when taking the step into running your own business, is accountability. You might know it all, but if you're not applying it and you're not doing it, then there's a massive miss. You might as well not know it. Yep. So having that accountability partner that you've given permission to hold you accountable can really help you stay on track, and keep you moving in the direction of why you're here and what you're doing.
100%. And I think that a harsh reality is most people know what they should be doing. You know, if I said to you, Lee, I want you to run a marathon next year. I want you to come first. All right, okay, what are the 3 things you need to do? Right, I need to get some good trainers, need to go running a lot and eat really healthily. Now, are you going to win the London Marathon next year? Probably not. But are you going to be in a 10 times better position you are today? Absolutely. Yeah. So whether you can look at yourself and have that harsh conversation, or whether someone comes on board externally and goes, like you said last week, you're going to do that sort of thing, you need to kind of get on with it because of X, Y, Z, then it's open to conversation there. But that's certainly something people need to look at and go, it's that accountability coming on board to keep me going in the right direction with my business. And a big part of it as well is just the mental side of things, because sometimes in a estate agency it's a bit of a roller coaster, and some days you have a brilliant day through no particular reason, sometimes you have a terrible day for no particular reason. I have an ongoing joke with my clients that I'm like 90% estate agency, 10% counsellor, because sometimes they just phone me up and they're like, Chris, I've had a fall through today, this has happened. I'm like, yeah, no problem at all, I'll put you on loudspeaker, go for it. And I'll put my loudspeaker, I'll carry on working, they'll rant away at me sort of thing for 10 minutes about how this solicitor's done X, Y and Z. And then they'll go, right, thanks Chris, see you later mate, bye. And that's it, because it can be a lonely world in the estate agency, I think. So if you need that as well to kind of keep you on track, it can be absolutely golden.
I like that in terms of being able to actually just voice some of those frustrations, because sometimes once it's voiced and out in the air, it takes the power away from it, right? In playing in your mind. Do you have any other strategies on the mental side that people could adopt or try if they're feeling under pressure or feeling anxious about the journey or stressed about the business? Yeah,
so the 2 things I would look at is, first of all, focus on the outputs you can do. Because really, that's all you can do. Focus on the outputs that you can do in your business. So, great, I want more instructions to come on the market myself. Right, well, what marketing can I do? If you can get the end of the week on Friday and go, I said I was going to knock 50 doors this week, I said I was going to do 100 letters, and I was going to do X, Y, and Z, and I've done it, well done, that's a good week. So that is point number 1. Focus on the output you can do for your business, because that is going to lead to everything else. If I said to you, Lee, jump on that treadmill for 5 hours a day, you can do what you like really outside of that time. If you're spending 5 hours on a day on a treadmill, you're going to be kind of going in shape pretty quickly, sort of thing. And the other part of it is focus on what went right rather than what went wrong. So this is something I do a lot with my clients. So they'll phone up and go, I've had a fall through last minute. It's been an absolute disaster sort of thing. And I'll be like, yeah, I get it. That's gone wrong. But you've generated a lead. You've done the market appraisal. You've wowed them enough to get instructed on it. Put it on the market at a good price, well presented. You've now sold it for a great price. They're over the moon. And your buyer's lost their buyer. Like, tell me what you've done wrong in that situation. You've done everything right. Yes, the end result hasn't been what you want to do, but you've done everything right. If you have done something wrong in that equation, like you haven't checked a buyer's situation or whatever it may be, learn from it, use it next time. But if it's nothing you've done wrong, yes, it's a bit annoying, but what can you do? Life gets in the way sometimes.
The energy wasted, in the wrong direction, isn't it? You know, it can be sapping when you get stuck in that little spiral of blame and stressed out. So no, so it's brilliant tips. Thank you. In terms of an agent today, we talked earlier, 12 competitors. We talked about brand. But if you had to give some tips about how an agent could stand out in this market, what are some of the things that you've seen work really effectively to make agents stand out?
Yeah, I think the best expression these days is omnipresent marketing. You need to be everywhere.
Okay.
And I don't care whether people are dropping their kids off at school, whether they're walking down the street, whether they're checking their posts, whether they're checking their email, whether they're going on Facebook, whether they're going on Twitter, whether they're going on TikTok. You need to be there. And I don't care whether you love Facebook, love TikTok, hate sending out letters, whatever it may be, you need to be everywhere. So for people to know, like, and trust you, you need to get about 11 marketing touch points, 7 hours of content in 4 different places. So it's a lot. The one thing that lots of people make in their business, they underestimate how much they need to do for people to go, aren't you Lee from IAD? You know, it's a lot of work for people to do to get to that stage. So if you are everywhere, those points will add up quite quickly. You know, when people say to me, oh, Chris, I see you everywhere, I think, yes, that's what I want, because that's where it needs to be. Because again, like I said earlier, the first issue is, does anyone even know who I am? And so it's about having that omnipresent marketing. It doesn't matter what you like and what you don't like. It's about where your clients are. So I always say to my clients, you know, what's your favorite social media? And they're like, oh yeah, I love Instagram, but yeah, I hate Facebook. And I'm like, I don't care. Because your clients might love Facebook and hate Instagram. And therefore you're the worst agent for them, sort of thing. So you need to do everything and do everything well. And I think in today's world, information is cheap. So if you're, rubbish at TikTok, for example, great. Go onto YouTube, type in how to be good at TikTok. There'll be a 15-year-old there telling you exactly how to be good at TikTok. And yes, you may not absolutely master it, but you'll be 10 times better than you were 10 minutes ago. Yeah. So there's no real excuse to be poor in today's market. So all the information is there. You just need to action it.
And do you think agents should be doing all of that themselves?
Depends what stage you're at with their business.
Okay.
I think if you're brand new, you're weighted more towards you doing it. But then as your business grows, you kind of leverage that away from you. So when you first start, I think everyone should have a good knowledge of every part of the business. So effectively what we're looking at is kind of a T-shaped individual, as Google would say. So you're kind of good at lots of things, but you're really good at one thing. So what I expect the guys I work with is that they are good at everything. I could put them in a room with marketing guys, they could hold their own. I could put them in a room with an accountant, they could hold their own, but they're exceptional at taking properties on the market and selling them. So there's an element where you need to know what's going on with it, so you can kind of see what's good and what's bad, sort of thing. But you'll get to a point where you hit a ceiling limit. And you'll go, social media, I've hit the ceiling limit. I can't do anything more with it. I haven't got enough hours in the day. I know I should be doing more video content, more this, more that sort of thing, but there's just not enough hours in the day. Okay, outsource it. And it's about understanding what your time is worth in the business. And you might go, right, okay, my time is worth £50 an hour. Okay, well, you're spending 100 hours a month doing social media, sort of thing. That adds up very quickly. Yeah. And you actually look at it and go, well, you can outsource it for half that amount of money. You know, probably not even that. And you go, right, I'm spending this much money licking envelopes. All right, well, you can get guys online to do it for you. So there's so many things you can do to outsource what you're doing. But to start off with, you're probably going to do a lot of it yourself. And then over time, you go, actually, as my business grows and the sort of my value grows as an individual within my business, I become more valuable than those jobs effectively. I can then start kind of passing them on to other people who can specialize in that.
Yeah. Brilliant. And Chris, obviously, you've started on your own business journey. What are some of the biggest struggles that you've faced?
Oh, blimey. There's a deep
changing
question.
It
that is changing it up. Struggles that I've faced. I think for me, I wouldn't say it's a struggle. I would say that the bit that is the hardest bit historically has been getting through to people about what you can do with coaching. Now that conversation is a lot easier. I think I've kind of broken that wall down slightly in the world with regard to it. I think the struggle is sometimes to see the big picture. And so I'm very lucky I've got a partner who keeps me very level-headed. And I'll say to her occasionally, I don't think it's going this well. And she's like, you're an idiot. you know, I'll have a record month 1 month, and then 10 minutes later I'll be like, oh yeah, but there this happened and that didn't. And she's like, you're an idiot. You like did so and so X last month, and so so's doing really well.
Yeah.
So you know, it affects everybody. And you know, the best thing you can do is kind of just try and stay on the path as much as you possibly can do. And you know, the Chimp Paradox is a great book to read. So that kind of the short story here is sort of, you've got your monkey brain and sort of your human brain. Yeah, absolutely right. Computer. Monkey brain, very irrational. Chimp brain kind of just makes things very quickly, and then the irrational brain kind of comes in later. So the best of us will sometimes get a bit of an irrational moment where we're like, oh, I just don't feel like it's going that well because of X, Y, and Z, and I got a door slammed in my face today. That means I'm a rubbish estate agent.
Yep.
It's like, no, that is just something that happened.
Yep.
It doesn't change anything. So those are struggles that myself, other people in business will come through. I'm very lucky now that I've kind of grown a team around me, and they're very supportive, and they kind of know what we're doing. And I look what they're doing, and I'm like, how I ever ran the business without them, I'll never know, sort of thing. So I'm very lucky I've got that support system around me that all want to kind of me to do well and the business to do well, and that kind of pulls you through some of those darker times.
Brilliant. So Chris, if anybody wanted to reach out to you, get in touch with what you're doing, where can they find you?
Everywhere.
That was the key.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, if I'm doing my job right, you should be able to find me on, I'm going to try and get all these now.
Cool.
You should find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, podcast, TikTok, bulk emails if you're on my mailing list, which everyone should be. I should be pretty much everywhere. So if you go on any of your favorite social media platforms, type in estate agent consultancy. Hopefully I should be towards the top of the list, I would have thought.
Brilliant. Chris, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you so much, Lee.
Cheers.